He is one of NTA's finest here on Good Morning Nigeria, Chukwudi Okolie-Ugbaja, a public affairs analyst for the World Press News Day. Mr. Chukwudi, thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Thank you for inviting me. It's really a pleasure.
Much. All right, tell us, why is this day so important to every journalist out there, locally, internationally?
Well, you would say, why is it important for every journalist out there? But the truth is that the journalist is a conduit. The people who benefit from journalism are the people themselves. And so I would even want to argue, why is the day important to the people? It was Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the French philosopher, who said, man is born free, yes, but wherever you find him, he's in chains. So there is the need for members of the 40 states of the realm to try to do the much they can to safeguard freedom of speech above everything else. Closely following that is to guard against rights violation. These days, when you have what has become a deluge of misinformation posing as alternative facts, okay, the job of the journalist actually becomes more and more relevant to society. It's just like one person said the other time, if there weren't God, it would be necessary to invent him for the good of mankind. So if there weren't journalists, it would be necessary to invent them to safeguard society from the ills I mentioned earlier.
Okay, now let's talk about the theme of this year's celebration, truth and facts. Let's dwell on this.
Yes, truth and facts. I mentioned something close to that already. You can see what is happening today in the United States of America. It is a strange happening to those of us who are old school journalists. You now get to hear about alternative facts. I grew up to know facts as facts, but facts are now becoming subject to the reading or interpretation of the group or association, individuals pushing that particular fact. It's not supposed to be called a fact, pushing that particular idea. You find out that truth has become an endangered species in the world we live in at the moment. You can never confuse social media work with journalism work.
At all.
A social media person will just bring his camera to the scene of an accident, video prostrate bodies on the ground there, and tell you that 5 people died in an accident today. He doesn't know that 4 of them are still breathing. It is when you impose factuality, fairness, accuracy, objectivity, and balance, the parameters for the job we do as journalists, that you get to know the truth about the situation. So you can never play down the job of the journalist. If we were not important before now, from the 20th century, it has become very important that journalists are allowed to do their work for the good of society.
Okay, now in doing their work, let me comment there.
The devil is contending with God these days.
Okay, now in talking about our roles as journalists, our job as journalists, our responsibilities, now at what point do we draw the line between journalism practice and public service?
That's a rather tricky one. Public service will be handled by public servants. Journalism will be handled by journalists. Let me make one point clear. If you have an old journalist, you knew so much to really be married to the tenets of journalism, and suddenly he becomes an aide to a principal in government, that person is no longer doing the job of journalists. They are protecting the interest of their principal. That would be public service to a public servant. But a journalist would forever be married to factuality, fairness, accuracy, objectivity, and balance. Those are the parameters that drive his work. We should never ever confuse journalism with public service. But then I quickly need to say that you are a journalist does not mean that you should no longer pay heed to what we call national interest. Somebody asked somebody the other time. So you pursue facts. You want to expose them the way they are. What if you go to cover violence somewhere, and when you return to the newsroom, the news you put out leads to violence times 3? Would you have done a good job of journalism? So there is the need for you to also balance the interests of society when you do your work. That I will call public service. That I will call being responsible in spite of what the tenets of your profession ask you to do. You must bring in discretion into how you do your work.
Into how you do your work. Now, you know, globally, journalists face so much threats, harassments, they're assaulted. How do we surmount these issues confronting us on a daily basis?
Well, you see, a journalist is a gadfly. A gadfly is a masterless person, a maverick. He is built to be like that. If he doesn't do that, he's going to tell things that favor his friends and promote things that no longer are in the interest of society. So he has a job to do the job the way it should be done, without, fear or favor. Some people will tell you, he was my classmate when we were in school. But the truth is that the minute he begins to think factuality, fairness, accuracy, objectivity, and balance, he's no longer talking as your classmate. He now owes more allegiance to the larger society than you, who thinks that because I knew him or I know him, he's going to pander to my whims and caprices. That is the dilemma a journalist has to face when they do their work. But as I said earlier, whatever you do, the good of society must be at the back of your mind.
Of course.
Because you cannot, in the process of enlightening, informing, educating, and entertaining, endanger the fabric of the society you think you're working in favor of. Because you're in the job of holding accountable people who should be accountable to the people.
Mr.
You
Chukwudi,
have a job to also make sure that you stay within the limits of not impinging on the freedom of the people you even report on.
Yes.
Very important. It's a job
Mr.
for responsible
Chukwudi,
people.
I actually
people
wish
of integrity.
I had much time to talk to you. It's been very interesting talking to you this evening. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for enlightening us, and thank you for being the journalist you are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's a big privilege you extended to me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.